I found a twist I can work with here. A compelling Reddit-style topic line based on your parameters. She betrayed me and stole $250, $0 of our family inheritance to fund her affair with my best friend, then sued me for half the property after I uncovered everything. Hello everyone. Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments section below. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Now, let's begin the video. Using a throwaway for obvious reasons, with certain specifics modified to preserve anonymity. I never thought I'd be the guy to get blindsided like this, but here I am. The thing is, my wife, Jessica, always seemed perfect, beautiful, smart, ambitious. We met in college, got married right after, and for a while I thought we had a pretty solid life. We had a nice house, good jobs, and a bright future ahead. But about 6 months ago, I started noticing small things that didn't add up. She'd be on her phone more than usual, hiding her screen when I walked into the room, and sometimes she'd get defensive if I asked who she was texting or calling. I brushed it off at first, thinking, maybe she was just busy or stressed. She's a high-powered lawyer after all, and her job can be demanding. Then the money started acting weird. We had a joint account and I noticed a sudden, unexplained withdrawal of $50, $0. I asked her about it and she shrugged it off, saying she invested in some new legal firm that she was helping fund. She always had some story, some excuse to brush off my questions. But I wasn't stupid. I had a gut feeling something was wrong and I kept digging. I'd catch her in little lies, like saying she was working late when I knew she was out with friends or her phone ringing at odd hours. Still, I never suspected the full extent until I saw the texts. It happened when I was cleaning out her purse. I'd always had a habit of checking her things when I felt something was off. That day, I found her phone hidden in her bag, and I decided to look through it. What I found almost made me drop my coffee. There were messages, explicit messages, with a guy named Mark, my best friend Mark. They were talking about meeting up, about sex, about sneaking around. The messages weren't just flirty, they were downright graphic. She called him babe and he called her sweetheart. I could see pictures, selfies of her in bed, half-dressed, and some of them were taken at our house. I couldn't believe it. My wife Jessica cheating on me with my best friend. I was numb. My mind was racing, trying to process this betrayal. How long had this been going on? Was it just sex or was there something more? Did they love each other? The worst part was knowing that I had trusted her, that I had shared everything with her, my hopes, my fears, my money. And she'd been lying the entire time. Not only was she cheating, but she'd also stolen a huge chunk of our inheritance, $250, money that was supposed to be for our future, for our kids someday. She'd taken it to fund her affair, and I had no idea. I confronted her that night. I told her I knew everything, the messages, the money, her lies. Her face twisted with anger and disdain. She told me I was paranoid, that I was imagining things, that Mark was just a friend, that I was overreacting. She called me jealous, insecure. She even tried to turn it around on me, saying I wasn't giving her enough attention, that I was neglecting her. But I wasn't buying it. I could see right through her. The woman I loved, the woman I thought I knew, was a complete stranger hiding behind a mask of betrayal. The shock hit hard and I felt my world collapsing around me. I wasn't just hurt, I was furious. How could she do this to me, to us, to our family? That night I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying everything in my head, her lies, her betrayal, the money she stole, the trust she shattered. I felt so naive, so stupid for not seeing the signs earlier. I wanted to believe she loved me, but now I knew better. I was drowning in a mix of anger, sadness, and disbelief. I realized I couldn't fix this, not without facing the truth first. I had to figure out what to do next. The betrayal ran deeper than I thought, and it was going to change everything. I was going to have to make some hard choices. The next morning, I woke up with a pounding headache and a heavy weight in my chest. The house was eerily quiet, and I knew I couldn't keep pretending everything was fine. I had to face her again, but I wasn't sure what I was going to say. My mind kept circling back to the money, $250, gone just like that. It wasn't just a matter of betrayal. It was a matter of betrayal with a purpose. She had taken that inheritance, money we'd worked hard for, and used it to fund her affair with Mark. The thought made my stomach turn. I decided I needed answers. First, I needed to see her face to face and get her to admit everything, or at least pretend to. I wanted her to understand I wasn't going to be the fool anymore. I waited until she came home from work, trying to keep my composure, but inside I was boiling. When she walked through the door, I could see her eyes darting around, trying to gauge my mood. She knew I knew, and that made her nervous. I didn't waste any time. I laid out everything I found, the texts, the money withdrawals, the selfies. Her face contorted into a mixture of anger, contempt, and disbelief. She scoffed and rolled her eyes, brushing off my accusations as if I was making it all up. "You're crazy," she spat. "You think I'd cheat on you with Mark? That's ridiculous. You're just paranoid like always." But I wasn't buying her lies anymore. I told her I wanted the truth and I wanted her to come clean. That's when she finally snapped. She started yelling, calling me insecure, jealous, and controlling. She said she was just stressed from her job, that Mark was just a client, and that I was blowing everything out of proportion. She insisted she never stole the money, that I was imagining it, that I was accusing her of something she didn't do. But I had the bank statements, the texts, the evidence. I knew she was lying. Still, her words stung, and I could see the anger in her eyes. She was furious I had uncovered her secret, and her reaction made me realize she'd do anything to protect herself. That confrontation was a turning point. I felt the full weight of her deception, and it was worse than I thought. She was capable of lying, cheating, and stealing from us, all while pretending to be the perfect wife. I could see that the woman I married was gone, replaced by someone else entirely. I was hurt and betrayed, but I also knew I couldn't let her get away with this. I needed to plan my next move carefully. Over the next few days, I started gathering more evidence, bank statements, emails, anything that could prove her actions. I also reached out to a lawyer just to understand my options. I knew she was planning to sue me for half of the property, claiming I was trying to ruin her career or something equally absurd. But I had the proof of her theft, and I wasn't going to let her get away with it. I also learned that she'd been funneling money into a secret account, probably to hide it from me. The betrayal ran so deep, I felt like I was drowning in a sea of lies. Meanwhile, she kept up her act, acting innocent in public, pretending everything was fine. But behind closed doors, she was frantic, trying to spin her stories, deny everything, and convince me I was overreacting. Her bitchy attitude only made me more determined. She's always been good at lying and manipulating, but I wasn't about to let her win. I knew I had to be smart, patient, and precise if I wanted to get justice. I wasn't just fighting for my money. I was fighting for my dignity and my future. That's when I started thinking about revenge. Not just the kind that burns her, but a calculated plan that would make her regret everything. I wanted her to feel the pain of betrayal, to understand what she'd lost, not just me, but her reputation, her freedom. She'd lied to everyone, to her friends, her family, and to me. I knew I had to turn this around, and I was starting to see how I could do it. But I also knew I had to be careful. One wrong move, and she might spin the story even worse. The game was on, and I was ready to play it to win. In the days that followed, I threw myself into planning. I wasn't just going to confront her again. I needed to set a trap that would expose her completely. The more I dug into her financials, the clearer it became that she'd been planning this for a while. The stolen inheritance, the secret account, the affair, all part of a bigger picture. I started talking to a private investigator just to confirm my suspicions and gather more concrete evidence. I wanted everything documented, everything airtight. Jessica, of course, was still acting like she was the victim. She'd throw fits, call me paranoid, accuse me of spying on her. She'd say I was overreacting, that I was jealous of Mark. But I knew better now. I knew that her lies were endless and her manipulations ran deep. I kept my cool, pretending to trust her while secretly setting up cameras and recording devices in the house. I wanted her to slip up, to say something that would seal her fate. Meanwhile, I started to prepare for the legal battle. I met with my lawyer, a sharp woman named Lisa, who explained my options. The key thing was the stolen money and the fact that she'd used our joint assets to fund her affair. I had the proof, bank statements showing withdrawals, emails discussing the transfer of funds, and the texts from Mark. I also discovered she'd been trying to sell some of our jewelry and valuables, probably to cover her tracks. I knew. I had to act fast before she could hide everything or spin a story that would make me look bad. One night, I decided to confront her again, but this time with a plan. I told her I knew about the affair and the money. I told her I'd been recording everything and that I had enough evidence to take her to court. Her face turned pale for a second, then she snapped. She started crying, calling me a jealous psycho, saying I was ruining her life. She told me I was just insecure because Mark was better looking, smarter, more successful. She accused me of being a controlling asshole who couldn't handle a strong woman. I didn't say much. I just told her that I'd had enough of her lies. I told her I was going to expose her for what she really was, a money-hungry, manipulative, cheating wife who'd betrayed her vows and her family. I wanted her to feel the weight of her actions. I wanted her to understand that I wasn't going to let her get away with it. Her tears didn't move me anymore. I was beyond caring about her sob stories. I was focused on the fact that I had the proof, and I was ready to fight for what was rightfully mine. Over the next few days, I watched her closely. She became more frantic, trying to cover her tracks. She deleted some of her messages, tried to access her secret account, but I had already gotten copies. I also noticed her trying to guilt me into dropping everything, saying I was ruining her career, destroying her reputation. That only made me more determined. I knew I had to act fast before she could spin any more lies. Finally, I decided I was ready. I scheduled a meeting with my lawyer and told her I wanted to file for divorce, claim my share of the property, and pursue legal action to recover the stolen money. I also planned to make a formal report about her theft and her affair. I wanted her to see that I wasn't backing down. I was done playing nice. This was about justice, and I was going to get it. As I prepared for the inevitable fallout, I felt a strange mix of relief and anger. Relief, because I finally knew the truth and was ready to face it head on. Anger because she'd lied, cheated, and stolen from me, all while pretending to be the perfect wife. I kept reminding myself that I deserved better, that I wasn't going to let her destroy what little was left of our marriage or my dignity. I was about to make her pay for everything she'd done, and I wasn't going to hold back. The game was just beginning. The day I finally filed for divorce, I felt a strange sense of relief mixed with annoying anxiety. It was like I'd been holding my breath for too long, and now I was finally exhaling, but I knew the storm wasn't over yet. Jessica's reaction was exactly what I expected. She flipped out. She screamed, called me every name in the book, accused me of ruining her life, and swore she'd fight me every step of the way. She went from bitchy and dismissive to downright desperate in a matter of hours. It was almost satisfying to see her so rattled, but I didn't let her get to me. While she was losing her mind, I kept my focus on the evidence. I handed everything over to my lawyer, bank statements showing the illegal withdrawal emails that proved her affair, recordings from the house cameras that caught her secret visits with Mark. The more I uncovered, the more I realized how deep her deception ran. She'd been planning this for months, maybe longer. The money she stole wasn't just a reckless act. It was a calculated move to fund her affair and cover her tracks. Jessica's initial strategy was to deny everything, but as the evidence piled up, her facade crumbled. She tried to spin stories about how the money was a gift, how Mark was just a business associate, and how I was crazy for suspecting her. But my lawyer laid out the case clearly. The evidence was irrefutable. The bank statements, the texts, the recordings, they painted a damning picture. And I knew I had the upper hand now. She was cornered and she knew it. The next few weeks were a whirlwind. Jessica hired her own attorney and the legal battles began. She tried to claim she was entitled to half the property, even though the money and evidence clearly proved she'd misappropriated our inheritance. I was prepared for that. I filed a counterclaim, demanding the return of the stolen funds and full custody of the evidence. I also started talking to other people, mutual friends, her family, to prepare for the fallout. Jessica was spreading lies, trying to paint me as the bad guy, but I had the truth on my side. Meanwhile, I started to see how her bitchy attitude was just a front. Her desperation was showing more and more. She'd call me names, cry, threaten to ruin me, but all I saw was someone who'd lost control. I stayed calm, focused on the end game. I knew she was capable of anything. She'd lied, cheated, and stolen from me, and I wasn't about to let her get away with it. I had to be strategic, patient, and relentless. That's what this was about now, justice. I was done playing nice. One evening, I caught her trying to access her secret bank account again. I'd installed a keylogger on her phone, and I saw her trying to transfer more money. That was the final straw. I showed the evidence to my lawyer, and she confirmed I had enough to freeze her assets. I called the bank and they blocked her from moving any more money. That night, Jessica lost her last shred of control. She yelled at me, called me a controlling bastard, and accused me of trying to ruin her life. But I just looked at her and said, "You've already done that yourself." I knew what I had to do next. I was going to take her to court, push for full custody of our assets, and recover every dollar she stole. I also planned to expose her affair publicly, if it came to that. She'd lied to everyone, pretended to be the perfect wife and mother, but I had the proof that she'd been living a double life. I wasn't going to let her spin her way out of this. I wanted her to understand that her actions had consequences. Looking back, I realize how much I've learned. Trust is fragile, and betrayal cuts deep. Jessica's actions showed me that sometimes the people you think you know best are the ones who can hurt you the most. I've come to accept that I can't change her, only myself. And moving forward, I'll rebuild, better, smarter, stronger. I don't regret what I've done because I fought for what was rightfully mine. And I know I'll come out of this with a clearer sense of who I am and what I deserve. This isn't just about money or revenge. It's about reclaiming my life from the chaos she tried to drag me into. The court date finally arrived after months of legal battles, and I was prepared. Jessica's lawyer tried every trick in the book: smear campaigns, false accusations, emotional appeals, but I had the evidence. The recordings, the bank statements, the emails, they all told the truth. I sat in that courtroom feeling a mixture of relief and anger, knowing I was about to finally settle this chapter of betrayal once and for all. Jessica looked nervous, her bitchy attitude replaced by a nervous twitch that she couldn't hide. The judge listened carefully as my lawyer laid out the case. We presented everything: how Jessica had stolen $250, $0 from our inheritance, used it to fund her affair, and then tried to hide her tracks. We showed her texts with Mark, the secret bank accounts, and the evidence of her planning to sell valuables to cover her tracks. Jessica's lawyer argued that she was entitled to half of everything, ignoring the fact that her actions had directly caused the financial mess. When it was her turn to speak, Jessica tried her usual act, acting innocent, claiming she was the real victim. She insisted she never stole the money, that Mark was just a business associate, and that I was trying to destroy her. Her voice trembled, but her words sounded hollow. The judge wasn't buying it. He looked at the evidence, then at her, and finally delivered a verdict that stunned her. The court ordered Jessica to return the stolen money, pay damages for the inheritance she misappropriated, and granted me full custody of the property. She was also ordered to pay my legal fees. The judge made it clear that her actions were serious, and her attempt to manipulate the system wouldn't stand. I felt a huge weight lift off my shoulders. Justice was finally served, but I knew this wasn't the end, just a new beginning. Jessica stormed out of the courtroom, furious and defeated. She screamed at me, calling me a vindictive bastard, a controlling husband, and worse. I watched her leave, feeling a strange mix of satisfaction and emptiness. Part of me wanted to see her suffer more, but another part just felt relief that I'd taken control of my life again. I'd fought for my money, my dignity, and my future. I'd exposed her lies and proven her wrong. In the days that followed, I started rebuilding my life. I moved out of the house, got a new place, and focused on my career and my mental health. I cut ties with anyone who had been part of her manipulative web. The betrayal had been brutal, but it also made me stronger. I learned to trust my instincts, to value honesty, and to never let anyone take advantage of me again. Jessica's gone, and while I don't wish her any ill will, I know I'm better off without her. Looking back, I realize how much this experience changed me. I'm more cautious now, more aware of the red flags. I also understand that sometimes the only way to get justice is to fight for it myself. I've learned that revenge isn't just about hurting someone back. It's about reclaiming your life and making sure they can't hurt you again. I'd tell anyone in a similar situation, don't stay silent. Dig for the truth, gather your evidence, and don't be afraid to stand up for yourself. Because in the end, justice is worth fighting. For no matter how ugly the fight gets, now that everything's settled, I spend a lot of time reflecting on what happened. Honestly, I never thought I'd find myself in such a mess, but I learned a lot about trust, betrayal, and resilience. Jessica's betrayal was a blow I never saw coming. She lied, cheated, stole, and almost destroyed the life we built together. But I also learned that even in the darkest moments, you have the power to fight back and take control of your own destiny. Getting rid of her, legally and emotionally, was the hardest thing I've ever done, but it was necessary. I realized that staying silent or trying to fix things would have only let her continue her lies and manipulations. Facing the truth, no matter how brutal, was the only way I could start healing. Now, I feel lighter, more focused, and more aware of what I deserve. I still get angry sometimes, mostly at how easily she lied and manipulated, but I remind myself that I've already won in the end. I reclaimed my peace, my money, and my dignity. One thing I've come to understand is that betrayal cuts deep, but it also reveals who people truly are. Jessica's true character was hiding behind a mask of perfection, but her actions exposed her for who she really was, a selfish, manipulative woman who only cared about herself. Her lies, her affair, her theft, they all showed me that I had to be smarter about who I trust. I've learned to value honesty above everything else, and to listen to my gut more often. As I move forward, I'm focusing on rebuilding my life. I've started saving again, focusing on my career, and reconnecting with friends and family I'd neglected. The pain of betrayal will always linger a little, but it's also made me more cautious and resilient. I now know what red flags look like, and I refuse to let anyone manipulate or hurt me again. I've also realized that revenge isn't just about getting even. It's about reclaiming your power and making sure you don't get hurt like that again. Looking back, I'd tell anyone dealing with a betrayal like this, don't ignore the signs. Trust your instincts, gather your evidence, and don't be afraid to fight for what's rightfully yours. Sometimes, you have to take the hard road to get justice, but in the end, it's worth it, because no amount of money, no matter how much she stole, can replace your peace of mind or your self-respect. I've lost a lot, but I've gained clarity, strength, and a renewed sense of purpose. And that, to me, is the real victory.